This is part 2 of the question, are we fighting sin like the coronavirus? You might have already seen the other video where I challenged you to consider, do we pay more attention to the danger of the coronavirus or what's going on in our own heart and the danger that sin can bring to that? And I want to encourage you to think about another aspect of this. If we are going to think seriously about this, how do we respond to sin? Is it like the coronavirus, or is it maybe different? And I want to suggest that it's a little bit yes and no. There are things that we can look at with the quarantines and the stay-at-home orders that are helpful. But when we look at sin in our own heart, when we understand the way sin works, quarantine is really not what we're going for when we're trying to fight sin in our own lives. We can't quarantine ourselves to keep away from the influences of the world. You know, we see that happening. We're trying to keep ourselves away from all the germs and everybody who might be exposed. We're self-quarantining, or when someone is infected and they're positive, we're quarantining them so it doesn't spread. When we're looking at sin, we can't hide ourselves away from all the bad influences of the world, because the worst source of sin is our own hearts. We can stop watching bad movies and listening to bad music and listening to people who use bad language, and that's good. We should do that, but that will not protect us from all of the infectedness of sin, because it's inside of us. Scripture teaches us that it comes from our own heart. And once we understand that, and we know that that's where it is, again, the response is not quarantine. We don't just find that sin, the wrong thoughts or desires or anything like that in our heart, and we don't just quarantine it. We don't just hide it away and try to avoid it. No, Ephesians 4 tells us that is not how we learned Christ. Verse 20 through 24 of chapter 4, Paul writes, "We were taught rather to put off your old self, remove it, kill it, stop thinking those thoughts, stop wanting those things that belongs to your former manner of life. It's corrupt through the deceitful desires, but rather be renewed in the spirit of your minds. Think new thoughts, put truth in, and then put on the new self, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness." We don't just push sin away and try to hide it and forget it and avoid it. We have to put something new in its place, or else it's going to come back. We don't just stop lying. We have to start speaking truth. So we have to focus our minds on truth, renew our minds on truth, and then we will speak truth. We don't just stop being angry and lashing out with harsh words. We have to renew our minds and then think kind thoughts and use kind words. We don't just stop being lazy. We remember truth, and then we work hard. We don't just put off, we also need to put on. I encourage you to think about that in your daily lives. The parts of your life that are affected by the coronavirus and the parts that are still normal, and all of those are places where we need to be renewing our minds, putting off the wrong thoughts and putting on the right ones.